Let's go. Here is my story. Caught my wife cheating with a secret social media profile, served her divorce and took custody of my son. Hello everyone, I'm working as a receptionist in a hotel and I'm married to my wife Jessica, 34, female, who is a nurse in a hospital. We've been married for 12 years and have a 10-year-old son. Our married life was simple and normal, just like every normal person, though financially we suffered a lot and had great difficulty meeting the ends. Somehow we managed to do it. Jessica was a great partner and mother. She's a hardworking woman and took half the responsibility, which made it less difficult for both of us. I didn't make much money as a receptionist, so I had to do extra work in the food hub, so we were hardly present at the same time, but we cherished weekends a lot. Our son Robert used to spend his daytime with his grandparents, and in the evening we both take him home at 9:00 usually, but sometimes during Jessica's overnight day Robert stays the night at his grandparents'. Our marriage was going smoothly and things were just normal with a mixture of peace and stress. However, I was grateful to have a partner like Jessica, who never left my side in times of adversity and helped me through. We both were absent parents and that really made me feel sad, but at the end of the day it was for our own good. But things got weird and took a B-turn on the day she came back from her friend's wedding. It wasn't just a normal wedding but a luxurious 5-day event. I was also invited to the wedding, but due to my workload I refused to go and stayed back. I also skipped it so I could save money. After she came back from the wedding she was unusually quiet. I asked her if she was fine and she got irritated by me. So I let her settle in the comfort space and gave her time. However, it started to trouble me more when she turned cold toward me. Not only did she become quiet, but she became irritated at me, but she was not telling me at all what was bothering her. After a week, she finally burst out of her frustration at the dinner table. I casually asked her which movie she wanted to see tonight. Initially, she ignored me and then got agitated at me for asking her such questions. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that she regretted marrying me and that all her friends were having their dream lives, but as for her, she was suffering and I was not doing much. As a man, I failed to provide her with the life she wanted. Instead of watching movies at home, when will I take her to the theater? There was a lot more which she said and stood up from the table, leaving the half-finished plate on the table. I stayed silent because I saw it coming. One day she was going to snap at me, and it wasn't her fault for having such wishes. I decided to apply for jobs and interview more and more. The next day she didn't come home in her usual time and she said she had extra hours at the hospital. I and Robert waited for her, but it got late, so I tucked him in bed. After a while I slept too, and Jessica came back at 4 in the morning. I asked her to come and sleep next to me and I would take care of the housework. I wrapped my arms around her waist and tried initiating sex, but she got irritated and asked me not to touch her. Obviously I respect her consent, but the way she snapped at me made me feel like she was disgusted by me. I somehow managed to keep my thoughts calm and went back to sleep. The next day was Sunday. In the morning I called her for breakfast and she came down looking irritated. I asked her what was wrong and she told me she wanted to buy herself a set of lingerie and she wanted my card. In that situation I couldn't say no to her, so I gave it to her. The card had money that I was saving up for Robert and I felt quite uneasy. I asked her if she could wait a week until my salary came, then buy it. Instead of using my card, she threw my card on the table and asked me to keep it, calling me stingy that I even refused to buy her basic things. I held her wrist and apologized millions of times to make her accept the card. Again, she took the card, kissed my cheeks to say thank you, and left. Her phone was on the table and it started buzzing. I took her phone and saw the text registration of some social media applications. I was going to open the phone, but Jessica came down and I put the phone down on the table. Immediately she took her phone and went outside. After a while I took Robert to his grandparents and on my way I got a message from the bank about the debited money. It was $1,200. I stopped my car and my hands were on my head, thinking how crazy Jessica had been acting. I dropped off my son, called Jessica and asked her to come back home. She came back home and I asked her about the stuff she bought for $1,200 and how could she spend such a huge amount of money in just one go. I had been saving it for the family. Obviously she kept listening, started crying and kept blaming me, saying that I ruined her life and that I couldn't even fulfill her basic wishes. All her friends are living luxurious lives, it's just me living at rock bottom. I told her she was acting crazy and greedy and that she knew my financial condition before marrying me. I did my best and I'm still doing it, and she shouldn't blame me for that. I told her that everything was fine a few months ago, but what's wrong now? Why was she acting like that suddenly? I don't know what happened to her. She sat in front of me with those guilt eyes and apologized to me for acting like that. She told me that on her friend's wedding day all her friends were wearing branded clothes and carrying luxurious bags and accessories. Her friends kind of embarrassed her and asked her if her husband wasn't doing enough for her. I felt bad for her and forgave her. Along with that, I asked her to understand that not everyone can afford the same lifestyle, and we both were trying our best to resolve the situation, so she shouldn't make herself feel embarrassed. Instead, she should feel great that she was an independent woman. She hugged me and we got intimate. After so many days, I was happy and satisfied with the ups and downs, because that's what makes the relationship more transparent and worth it. But soon it went down again. Her phone started buzzing with her text messages from some app, but from the locked screen I wasn't able to see which app it was. I was going to open the phone, but the password was incorrect. At first I didn't mind and asked her for the password and told her about the text. She didn't give me any details or her password and casually took her phone and left the room. After Jessica fell asleep, I took the phone from her side and tried entering the password, but it failed again. I was annoyed and tried processing my thoughts as to why she had changed her password. As soon as I put her phone back, it started buzzing again with a series of notifications. It was troubling. In the morning I went back to work and dropped her off. Yesterday was our wedding anniversary, and I did remember but pretended to be obvious as I prepared a surprise for her. After dropping her off at the hospital, I went back to my place and set it up beautifully with warm lights and lights. Robert was going to stay at his grandparents tonight. I was so excited and happy while preparing her favorite meals. After placing everything nicely, the door opened and Jessica walked in. Her tired face changed into happiness as soon as she saw the house set up romantically. She ran toward me and hugged me tightly. We had a great time together, and finally we sat down to talk. She told me that she loved the efforts I had put in, but if we had money we could go to a fancy restaurant. She also started telling me about her friend whose husband gifted her a diamond ring. I started to feel insecure and realized that she didn't like what I did to make her happy, and she was not satisfied at all. I listened to her quietly, faking a smile. I didn't want to fight with her on my anniversary. To distract her, I started clicking pictures of us, but as soon as I was going to upload those, she asked me not to post these pictures as house and everything looked cheap and she didn't want her friends to see them. She was so harsh and made everything seem worthless. The food and the flowers were worth nothing in front of her greedy eyes. Jessica was from a well-to-do family, but she was never greedy, or maybe she never showed that to me. She knew about my humble earnings and she never complained about it, but suddenly she's become so materialistic. I was still not able to process my thoughts. She went inside the bedroom and called me. After a few minutes, she was wearing red lingerie and looked extremely ravishing. I went towards her and started kissing her, but she stopped and asked me to click a few pictures of hers. We had fun and the rest of the time went fun. In the morning I got a call from Robert's school and I immediately drove off. After reaching the school, the teachers told me that he got into a fight. I asked Robert what was wrong, that he punched his friend. He told me that his friend James was making fun of Mom and he was telling everyone that Mom got fired from the hospital. James's mother was also a nurse in the same hospital as Jessica. I didn't want to believe what I heard. Maybe it was just a rumor. If it really happened, why didn't she tell me? I left for my work after that, but I just was not able to process all the changes going on in my life. I sensed something was wrong with Jessica. There's something she's hiding. I'm not doubting her outrightly that she's cheating on me, but she's definitely up to something. Well, I don't doubt that she bought lingerie, but it definitely wasn't for you. And as for her frivolous spending, that's just as bad as cheating. Not only that, but it's unfair of her to be comparing your relationship and your means to other friends and what their lives look like. Moreover, the fact that she was fired and didn't tell you speaks volumes. I mean, if she can't tell you that, what else isn't she telling you? Update 1. Hi everyone, it's been a week since my last update and I was dealing with many issues and finally decided to divorce Jessica after knowing the truth. After hearing the rumor from Robert, the first could not sleep for days and decided to find the truth. Today morning I just drove off to the hospital. I asked the receptionist to call Jessica, introducing myself as her husband. The receptionist looked at me and then shared looks with the other lady on the counter. The receptionist told me that Jessica no longer worked there. I asked her since when. She said a month ago. I asked her the reason, but she didn't tell me. Her looks suggested that she knew and it was pretty bad, but she didn't tell me. I was coming out of the hospital confused and angry. I was wondering if she was fired. Then where was she working these days and from where was she getting money? As I was about to get in the car, James's mother waved at me to stop. She apologized for James's behavior and how she shouldn't have talked about such things in front of her son. I nodded and said not to worry. She said she had something I needed to know. I knew what it was. She told me that after Jessica came back from her leave, the wedding leave, she started feeling very insecure and sad about her life, and the only thing she talked about was money. She took Jessica's cribbing to be normal stuff, as we all feel like that sometimes, but that didn't stop there. Jessica created an adult profile on social media. I was shocked and I felt numb. She said that Jessica got fired because she was caught making obscene videos in clicking naked pictures in the Santo room of the hospital. One of the janitors saw it and made videos of it and linked it to every staff, and that's how everyone got to know. I asked her for the name of the social media app and she gave me her number and told me that she would send me an account link of Jessica's profile. She asked me to stop Jessica or that would create problems for Robert and his school. I requested her not to discuss all of this in front of James, as that would further create problems for him. She agreed. I felt so disgusted after hearing this that I wanted to throw up. Never in my life have I felt so worthless, and I blamed myself for everything she was doing. It was because I failed to provide. After crying my heart out inside my car, I tried to gather all the evidence by myself and then confront Jessica because she was going to feed me lies on lies. While I was driving back, I remembered that a few days back I was scrolling down my social media and saw a new profile. On my suggestion, in the profile picture there was a woman who was wearing red lingerie, but her face was hidden. I don't know why her back resembled that of Jessica's. I clicked on it, but it took me to an 18+ website for adult entertainment. I took that to be another promotion gimmick of an adult dating app, and I ignored it. Now I realize that the social media app shows you suggestions if the person is in your contact list. The woman was definitely Jessica. The dots started to connect and I felt uneasy and anxious. In the evening when I reached home, I found several packages on the couch, dresses, heels, bags and whatnot lying around that were just bought out of the store. I took out the bill from the sofa and couldn't breathe for a moment after seeing that she bought a $900 lipstick. Jessica came out of the room and looked scared to see me. I showed her the bill and asked her where did she get all the money. She threw the stuff from her hand on the floor and told me that she regrets marrying me and that she feels confined inside the walls of poverty. She wanted a few things for herself and she got it. What's such a big deal about it? She was like, why does my life always have to be about our son in this house? Why can't I spend my savings on something I love? I almost laughed at her manipulative tactics but pretended not to know the truth. I took a deep breath and again asked her where did she get all the money. She looked at me and told her that she got promoted to a different healthcare center and they paid her a good amount. I nodded and went outside for a walk. James's mother texted me Jessica's adult account details, and without even opening the account I knew it was Jessica. I put my hands on my face and didn't have the courage to open it and see for myself, but the anger and the insults she put me through today were humiliating, only to realize that she sold her body to the public for materials and ruined our 13 years of marriage. I searched the username and it showed the exact same account I had on suggestions a few days ago. I made a new account, created a whole fake profile and did everything that was needed. I found her account, but to see her content I had to subscribe and it cost $200. I paid that amount, a big amount for me but a small amount to pay to save myself from daily humiliation. Her profile said your personal nurse, and after taking the subscription the account finally opened. My palms were sweaty, my mouth felt bitter and I almost threw up when I saw those pictures. Those pictures and videos were scary, but the comments were terrifying. How of the stuff was hidden and they cost such high rates. Not only this, but she also posted the pictures I clicked on the day of our anniversary. The same pictures now look disgusting to me. The comments were outrageous and I couldn't look at that anymore. More like I couldn't look at her anymore and immediately thought of divorce. There was no time to delay, so I called my brother and asked him to help me prepare the divorce paper. He worked for an attorney. When I came back home she wasn't there. She left a note leaving for the night shift. The fun part is she's jobless. I don't want to spell this out, but God, I know what kind of night shift she's into. I don't think I'll be able to sleep until I confront her and humiliate her the way she insulted me, and for that I didn't have to do anything because she did it herself. I'm so sorry. Opus, you're right to seek a divorce at this point. She's a lost cause. I think the worst part is she's more interested in making money for herself than to create a good and happy life for your child. I mean, yes, it's important a mother treats herself every now and again, but your wife has seemed to lose sight of what's important. Not only that, but you're out $200 update too. It's been a while since the last update, as I was dealing with severe trauma and the divorce process was harder to process. So the next morning after my last update, I woke up to Jessica's yelling at Robert, asking him to stay the F away from her expensive things. He was apparently messing around with the expensive stuff she bought last night. This brought anger down my body. I asked Robert to go inside his room. I gave her a cold stare and asked her again, where did she get this much money? She put her phone aside and asked me if I had lost my hearing ability. I laughed at her comment and told her that at least I didn't lose respect for myself the way she did. She looked completely oblivious and asked me what I was talking about. I told her to continue with your personal nurse business and that the divorce papers would reach her soon. She understood where I was coming from. It was her username on the adult website. She sat on the sofa and felt ashamed. I told her not to feel ashamed or regret this after getting caught because it was her own choice. She started crying and saying that she couldn't take all the insults she went through in front of her friends and cousins when they showed off all of their luxurious things, and she was leading a mediocre lifestyle, so she took that path and bought herself the expensive stuff. I yelled at her that a modest lifestyle is much better than showing your naked body to the world, and if she still wanted to pursue that, she should have told me. I know it's her body and her choice, BS, but she need not keep me in the dark and would have done that openly. I told her that I knew why she got fired from the hospital and that my innocent boy had to suffer the bullies in his school because of her fantasy and greed. Her body language suggested she had no remorse. I felt like she was going to continue doing this after our divorce, and every tear was just an act of being caught and not guilty of what she had been doing. She said we could figure out a middle ground and I couldn't take our son away from her. I told her that was impossible to spend my life with someone who could show her nudity and nakedness in front of the whole world just for the sake of easy money. I know she didn't care about our son at all. I asked her if she had any idea how humiliating it was going to be for Robert when he got to know from his friends or people around him that his mother sold her nudes for a living. Have you thought of the consequences we are going to face because of your greed? She remained silent and then started arguing, saying that it was partially my fault and that she had no choice. I told her she clearly had a choice and she chose to be instead of being broke. Her face disgusted me and I left the house with Robert for my parents. I overtime as many jobs as I could for her and my son, and still she was an ungrateful, disgusting, immoral witch, and I could never accept such a person back in my life. I've been living with my parents for the last 1 week. Jessica didn't try to contact me or our son. The divorce paper is supposed to come in the next few days and I want this to be over as soon as possible. Oh wow, so she's suddenly interested in the son that she didn't seem to care about before. I'm glad you got you and Robert out of there. I don't believe her tears were sincere at all. She could care less. All she cares about is her expensive lipsticks. None of this was your fault, Opus. None of it. Update 3. Hello everybody, I finally got rid of my ex-wife from my life. It took days for the divorce papers to reach her. During the divorce process, Jessica and her parents filed a case against me for complete custody of Robert. The first had almost lost the case. They made me look like a poor and unavailable father who never did anything for my son. Like I said, her parents are well off and they claim that I won't be able to provide a good life for Robert. That's when I made them ask her about her job and if she is a suitable guardian for a 10-year-old. Obviously I cannot leave the custody of my son to Jessica's parents. I told the judges and showed the proof of her immoral acts and how her reputation will take a toll on Robert's mental health and social value. I don't want my son to go through bullying, and that's how I got the complete custody of him. Robert himself was not attached to his mother, but I did allow her to meet him whenever she wanted. Jessica's parents and her siblings blamed me for her actions. They said that she chose that path because I couldn't give her the life she deserved. They never wanted Jessica to marry me, and this whole scenario gave them another opportunity to make fun of me. The joke is on them actually, if they really can see. Anyway, I don't give a crap about anyone now. I'm just happy to have a peaceful life with my son. I lost a fortune going through this, but it was worth it. As for her, I heard she's still on that adult site selling her nudes to make money. Thankfully, I didn't forgive her and dodged a bullet. I can't even believe people chose to side with her when you've been the one taking care of Robert for God knows when. On top of that, she definitely doesn't have Robert's best interest at heart. From the sounds of it, she's just interested in making Money so she can spend money and fit in with her rich friends. If she wants to send nudes, go right ahead, her business is her business, but she can't have her cake and eat it too. If she wanted a lavish life, she should have looked somewhere else. Not all life's riches are materialistic. The richest person can have the least money in the bank but the warmest, most loved heart. What do you make of all this? Thank you for joining us today. That's the story. If you liked it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story. Thank you for being here with us. The door swung open with a loud thud, startling the serene afternoon as Amelia stormed into her parents' home. Her face was pale, streaked with tears that betrayed the storm of emotions brewing inside her. Mother Lillian instantly froze, her sharp instincts picking up on her daughter's distress. Amelia, what's wrong? Leland asked, rushing to her side, wrapping her arms protectively around her. Amelia collapsed into her mother's embrace, her sobs shaking her small frame. She tried to speak, but the words refused to come out, only managing to choke. Nathan, he gone? Lillian's arms tightened around her daughter as she whispered calming reassurances, but the phrase had already sent a ripple of dread through the room. From his armchair, Malcolm, Amelia's father, put down his newspaper, his piercing gaze locked on his daughter. His brow furrowed, the air in the room thickening with unspoken questions. After a moment, Amelia pulled back, her trembling hands holding an envelope she had been clutching. She thrust it toward Malcolm with desperation. He sent me this at work, she stammered. Malcolm took the envelope, his weathered hands steady as he opened it. His face hardened as his eyes scanned the document. Divorce papers, he muttered under his breath. The words seemed to hang in the air, a harbinger of the chaos about to unfold. And he served you at work. There was no disguising the anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. Amelia's voice cracked. He said he needed to run errands with Caleb, but then I got this. Her voice faltered and she wiped her face with trembling hands. And he's accusing me of cheating. Malcolm's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing as he flipped through the pages. Cheating, he repeated, his tone sharp. Is there any truth to this? Amelia's face crumpled and she shook her head vehemently. No, I would never. Nathan is just paranoid. He thinks I'm having an affair with someone at work because I hugged a coworker after we closed a deal. It's ridiculous. Oh, the tension in the room was suffocating. Lillian guided Amelia to the couch, sitting beside her as if her presence alone could shield her daughter from the storm. But there's more. Malcolm interjected, his voice darker as he turned another page. He's asking for joint custody of Caleb, but he doesn't want anything to do with Charlie. He's even asking for Charlie's last name to be changed and his name removed from the birth certificate. Amelia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Lil's expression mirrored the shock, her hands clutching Amelia's as if grounding her. Why would he do that? Leland demanded, her voice trembling with rage. Malcolm's gaze shifted to Amelia, his voice low but pointed. Amelia, is there something you're not telling us? Nathan's claiming Charlie isn't his son. The accusation struck like a thunderclap. Amelia's eyes widened in disbelief before tears streamed down her face. No, that's not, I mean, she faltered, her voice barely audible as she continued. There was one night years ago I was at a party drunk, a coworker kissed me but I stopped it. That's all, nothing else happened, I swear. The room fell silent, the weight of her confession sinking in. Malcolm's eyes were unreadable, his lips pressed into a tight line. Without a word he rose, leaving the room briefly. When he returned he held a small plastic bag in his hand. Carefully he began gathering napkins and tissues Amelia had used, sealing them with deliberate precision. Lillian's voice broke through the silence, sharp and incredulous. What are you doing, Malcolm? His reply was measured but firm. I'm contacting Nathan. I need to know what he's basing this claim on. If there's a DNA test, I want answers. Amelia's sobs grew louder, her hands trembling as she clutched her mother. You don't believe me, she cried, her voice filled with hurt. Malcolm's expression softened but his resolve remained. I need the truth, Amelia, for everyone's sake. The house had fallen into an uneasy silence. Amelia sat on the couch, her body slumped as though the weight of the world was pressing down on her shoulders. Her mother sat beside her, rubbing soothing circles on her back, but it did little to ease the storm within her. Malcolm paced the living room with deliberate steps, his mind clearly racing. The plastic bag he had filled earlier was now sitting on the dining table, a glaring reminder of the situation they found themselves in. He stopped abruptly, turning to face Amelia. When did things start to fall apart with Nathan? He asked, his voice steady but Demanding it wasn't an idle question. Malcolm was probing for answers, searching for the missing pieces that could make sense of the chaos. Amelia sniffled and looked down at her trembling hands. I don't know exactly, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't always like this. When we first got married, everything was perfect. He was loving, attentive. He was my best friend. But after Caleb was born, something changed. Change? How? Malol pressed. She hesitated, struggling to put her thoughts into words. He became distant, she said finally. He started working late, canceling plans. I thought maybe it was just the stress of being a new parent, but then he started accusing me of things, of lying, of hiding things from him. I tried to reassure him, but nothing I said ever seemed to be enough. Malcolm nodded, his expression thoughtful. Did he ever mention Charlie? Did he ever give you any reason to believe he doubted you before this? Amelia's eyes welled with fresh tears. Not until recently. He started making these offhand comments like, Charlie doesn't look like me, or you always favored him over Caleb. I thought he was just being insecure. But now her voice broke and she buried her face in her hands. Leland shot Malcolm a glare. Stop interrogating her, Malcolm. She's been through enough. I'm not interrogating, Malcolm replied sharply. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. If Nathan is accusing Amelia of infidelity and rejecting Charlie, there has to be more to it. He wouldn't just make these claims out of nowhere, wouldn't he? Lillian snapped. You don't know what's going on in his mind. For all we know, he's the one who's been unfaithful, and then he's projecting it onto her. Malcolm didn't respond, but the muscles in his jaw tightened. He turned away and picked up the plastic bag again, holding it as though it contained the answers he sought. I'll make some calls tomorrow, he said finally. We'll see what Nathan has to say. Amelia's head shot up, her tear-streaked face filled with alarm. You going to talk to him? I have to, Malcolm said simply. If we're going to fight this, we need to know exactly what we're up against. The following morning, M wasted no time. After a tense breakfast where few words were exchanged, he retreated to his office and closed the door behind him. He pulled out his phone and dialed Nathan's number, his fingers tapping impatiently on the desk as he waited for the call to connect. Nathan answered on the third ring. Malcolm, he said, his tone flat. I figured you'd call. Malcolm didn't bother with pleasantries. We need to talk. Nathan, I saw the papers you sent to Amelia. There was a pause on the other end of the line when Nathan spoke again. His voice was colder. Then you know why I did it? I know what you're accusing her of, Malcolm replied evenly, but I don't understand why. What evidence do you have? Why are you so sure she's been unfaithful? Nathan let out a bitter laugh. Evidence? How about the fact that Charlie isn't my son? I had a DNA test done, Malcolm. There's a less than 1% chance I'm his father. Malcolm's grip on the phone tightened. And what made you decide to get a DNA test in the first place? I had my suspicions, Nathan said. Amelia's behavior, the way she always seemed to be hiding something. And then there was that night at the office party. She didn't think I knew, but I saw her with that coworker. They were too close, too familiar. It was enough to make me question everything. Malcolm's mind raced as he processed Nathan's words. He felt a surge of anger, but forced himself to stay calm. You should have come to us, Nathan, he said quietly. We could have worked this out as a family. There's nothing to work out, Nathan replied coldly. I know the truth now, and I'm done pretending this marriage is over. The conversation with Nathan left Malcolm with more questions than answers. When he emerged from his office, his face was grim and his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Leland was waiting for him in the living room, her expression filled with worry. What did he say? She asked. Malcolm hesitated before answering. He's convinced Charlie isn't his son. He had a DNA test on. Lillian's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening in shock. And Amelia, does she know? Not yet, Malcolm admitted. I didn't want to tell her until I had all the facts. You think she's lying? Lillian's voice was sharp, defensive. I don't know what to think, Malcolm said, but we need to get to the bottom of this for everyone's sake. Amelia sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Her mother hovered nearby, tidying the already immaculate countertops, a nervous habit she'd picked up whenever the family was in turmoil. The air was heavy with unspoken words, the tension palpable. When Malcolm entered the room, Amelia's eyes immediately darted to his face. His grim expression told her everything she needed to know. You talked to him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Malcolm nodded and pulled out a chair, sitting down across from her. Leland stopped mid-swipe, her eyes darting between her husband and daughter. What did he say? Amelia pressed, though her voice wavered as if she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. He had a DNA test done, Malcolm began, his tone even but heavy. He's Convinced Charlie isn't his son, Amelia's breath hitched and her grip on the mug tightened until her knuckles turned white. That's not true, she whispered, shaking her head. Hek lying, he has to be lying. Held her gaze, his own filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. Do you know of any reason why the test would show that, he asked carefully. Amelia's eyes filled with tears and she shook her head vehemently. I told you everything, there's no way Charlie is his, he has to be. Lillian stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Amelia's shoulder. Maybe the test was wrong, she suggested. Those things aren't always accurate. Malcolm sighed, leaning back in his chair. Here, we'll have to get our own test done, he said. It's the only way to be sure. No, Amelia's voice was sharp, her fear evident. You don't need to do that, I know the truth. Do you? Malcolm's voice was calm but firm, and Amelia flinched at the weight of his words. Because if we don't clear this up, Nathan will use it against you in court. Is that what you want? Amelia didn't answer, her silence speaking volumes. Lillian shot her husband a glare, but Malcolm didn't back down. He reached across the table and gently placed his hand over Amelis. I'm on your side, he said softly, but we can't fight this if we don't have the facts. The following week was a blur of tension and uncertainty. Malcolm made arrangements for the DNA test, carefully explaining the process to Amelia and reassuring her that it was just a precaution. She agreed reluctantly, her trust in her father wavering under the weight of the situation. Meanwhile, Leland tried to keep the peace, but the strain was evident. She found herself caught between supporting her daughter and resenting her husband for his unwavering insistence on the test. Their once harmonious household was now a battleground of doubt and frustration. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the house in a warm golden glow, Amelia approached her mother in the living room. Do you think Dad believes me? She asked, her voice trembling. Leland hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I think he wants to believe you, she said finally, but Hugh's a practical man, he needs proof. Amelia nodded, though her heart ached at the thought. And what about you? She asked, her voice barely audible. Lillian's expression softened and she reached out to take her daughter's hand. I believe you, she said firmly. I know you wouldn't lie to us. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes and she clung to her mother, finding solace in her unwavering support, but deep down a seed of doubt had already taken root, threatening to unravel everything. The day of the DNA test arrived and Amelia's anxiety was palpable. She sat in the waiting room of the clinic, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Malcolm sat beside her, his expression stoic but his presence a silent show of support. It'll be over soon, he said quietly. Those words did little to ease her nerves. When her name was called, Amelia stood on shaky legs, casting a glance back at her father before following the technician. The process was quick and clinical, but it felt like an eternity by the time she returned to the waiting room. Her face was pale and her hands were trembling. Malcolm rose to meet her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did the right thing, he said. We'll get through this. Amelia didn't respond, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if the test came back wrong? What if Nathan had somehow manipulated the results? The thought was almost too much to bear. As the days stretched into weeks, waiting for the test results became its own kind of torment. Amelia threw herself into her work, desperate for a distraction, but the tension at home was inescapable. Lillian and Malcolm continued to clash, their arguments growing louder and more frequent. One night, as Amelia lay awake in her childhood bedroom listening to the muffled sounds of her parents' latest fight, she felt a wave of guilt wash over her. This wasn't just about her anymore. Her decisions, her mistakes, real or perceived, were tearing her family apart. The weight of it was suffocating. Amelia sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her phone screen. The silence in the house was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards. Her parents had gone to bed hours ago, or so she assumed, but sleep felt like an impossible luxury. Her thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind of fear, anger, and guilt. Her phone vibrated, suddenly jolting her from her spiraling thoughts. It was a message from her best friend Olivia, who had been her confidant through much of this ordeal. Olivia, hey. Thinking of you, let me know if you need anything. Amelia stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, Amelia, thanks, just trying to keep it together. Olivia responded almost instantly, Olivia, you don't have to do it alone, let's grab coffee tomorrow. Amelia hesitated before replying. She appreciated Olivia's unwavering support, but the idea of facing anyone outside her family right now felt exhausting. Still, she typed out a quick agreement before putting her phone aside. She laid back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The DNA test results were still days away, and the uncertainty was eating her alive. Every moment felt like another opportunity for the situation to spiral further out of control. The next morning, Amelia met Olivia at their usual spot, a small coffee shop nestled on a quiet corner of town. The comforting hum of the espresso machine and the chatter of other patrons provided a welcome reprieve from the suffocating tension at home. Olivia waved her over to a table near the window, her expression one of concern. "You look like you haven't slept," she said as Amelia slid into the seat across from her. "I haven't," Amelia admitted, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "It's just everything is such a mess." Olivia leaned forward, her brow furrowing. "Do you want to talk about it?" Amelia hesitated, the words catching in her throat. She trusted Olivia, but saying it all out loud made it feel even more real. Finally, she took a deep breath and began to explain. She told Olivia about Nathan's accusations, the divorce papers, and the DNA test. As she spoke, Olivia's expression shifted from concern to shock to anger. "That's insane," Olivia said when Amelia finished. "You don't deserve this, none of it." Amelia shrugged, her eyes fixed on her coffee cup. "Maybe I do," she said quietly. "Maybe I should have been more careful, more aware of how things looked." "Don't do that," Olivia said firmly. "Don't take the blame for his paranoia. This is on him, not you." Amelia managed a weak smile, grateful for her friend's unwavering support, but deep down the guilt still noted her. Back at home, the tension between Malcolm and Leland had reached a boiling point. The argument that had begun as a quiet disagreement over dinner the previous night had exploded into a full-blown shouting match. By morning, "You're treating her like a criminal," Lillian yelled, her voice shaking with anger. "She's your daughter, Malcolm. How can you doubt her like this?" "I'm not doubting her," Malcolm shot back, his tone cold and controlled. "I'm trying to protect her. If Nathan takes this to court, do you think a judge is going to take her word over a DNA test? We need to be prepared. She's already falling apart, and you're making it worse." Lily encountered. "You're so focused on being prepared that you're forgetting she's a human being, not a case file." Malcolm's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving Leland standing there seething. Amelia, who had been listening from the hallway, felt her heart sink. She couldn't remember a time when her parents had been this at odds with each other, and knowing that she was the cause only made it worse. That evening, as Amelia sat in her room, her thoughts racing, her phone buzzed with a call. She glanced at the screen and froze. It was Nathan's mother, Evelyn. Amelia hesitated before answering. "Hello, Amelia." Evelyn's voice was soft but firm. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "No, it's fine," Amelia said, though her heart was pounding. She couldn't imagine why Evelyn was calling her now. "I just wanted to say I don't know what's going on between you and Nathan, but I don't believe for a second that you've been unfaithful," Evelyn said. Her tone was steady, but there was an undercurrent of emotion that caught Amelia off guard. "Thank you," Amelia said, her voice barely above a whisper. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words. "I've known you for years," Evelyn continued, "and I know how much you love your family. Whatever Nathan is going through, it's his issue, not yours. Don't let him make you doubt yourself." Amelia felt a lump rise in her throat and she struggled to hold back tears. "That means a lot, Evelyn. Really?" Evelyn hesitated before adding, "If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me." Amelia nodded, even though Evelyn couldn't see her eye. "Well, thank you." The days drag on, each one heavier than the last. When the DNA test results finally arrived, Malcolm sat down with Amelia in the kitchen to go over them. Lillian stood nearby, her arms crossed defensively as if bracing herself for what was to come. Malcolm opened the envelope with deliberate care, his expression unreadable. He scanned the document silently, his brow furrowing. "Well?" Amelia asked, her voice trembling. Malcolm looked up, his expression a mixture of relief and confusion. "It says there's a 99.9% chance that Nathan is Charlie's biological father." Amelia let out a shaky breath, her shoulders sagging with relief. "I told you," she whispered, though the triumph in her voice was muted by exhaustion. Lillian's expression softened and she placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "See, we knew the truth all along." But Malcolm wasn't celebrating. He was staring at the document, his brow furrowed. "If that's the case," he said slowly, "then why did Nathan's test say otherwise?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. Amelia's relief was short-lived as a new wave of anxiety washed over her. The mystery of Nathan's accusations had only deepened. Malcolm sat alone in his office late into the night, the DNA results spread out on his desk like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. The discrepancy between the two tests gnawed at him, a riddle he couldn't ignore. Nathan's claims have been so certain, but the results were clear. Charlie was his son, so where had the false DNA test come from? He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. His mind replayed the conversation he had with Nathan, searching for anything he might have missed. The only thing that stood Out was Nathan's mention of a coworker. Was it possible Nathan had acted out of jealousy, twisting facts to justify his suspicions? The thought left a bitter taste in Malcolm's mouth. If Nathan had fabricated evidence to serve his narrative, it was more than just cruel, it was a calculated attempt to destroy Amelia's life. Malcolm felt a flicker of anger burn in his chest. He needed answers, and he wasn't going to sit idly by while his family suffered. The next morning, Malcolm called Nathan. The phone rang several times before Nathan finally answered. His voice curdled. "What do you want?" "I got the DNA results," Malcolm said, his tone measured. "They confirmed Charlie is your son." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Nathan spoke again, his voice was laced with skepticism. "That doesn't make sense. My test said the opposite, which is why I'm calling." Malcolm said, "I want to know where you got your test done. If there's a mistake, we need to figure it out." Nathan hesitated. "It was a private lab," he said. "Finally, I can send you the information if you really want it, but I don't see the point. The damage is done." Malcolm's grip tightened on the phone. "The damage isn't done until you admit you were wrong. Amelia deserves better than this." Nathan didn't respond, and after a moment the line went dead. Malcolm stared at the phone, his frustration mounting. He would get to the bottom of this, even if Nathan refused to cooperate. Determined to uncover the truth, Malcolm contacted the lab Nathan had mentioned. After explaining the situation, he requested a copy of the original report and any documentation related to the test. The lab technician on the other end of the line was polite but firm. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't release that information without the consent of the individual who requested the test." Malcolm's frustration flared, but he kept his tone calm. "I understand, but this is a matter of great importance to my family. Isn't there anything you can do?" There was a pause before the technician replied, "If you believe there's been an error, you can file a formal complaint. We'll investigate the matter internally and notify you of any effing." It wasn't the answer Malcolm had hoped for, but it was better than nothing. He thanked the technician and hung up, his resolve hardening. If Nathan had manipulated the results, Malcolm would find out, and he would make sure his daughter's name was cleared. While Malcolm worked behind the scenes, Amelia struggled to keep her emotions in check. The relief of the DNA results had been short-lived, overshadowed by the lingering questions about Nathan's motives. Every time she thought about the false accusations, a knot of anger and betrayal tightened in her chest. One evening, as she sat on the couch scrolling through old photos on her phone, she stumbled upon a picture of her and Nathan from happier times. They were smiling, their arms wrapped around each other, with Caleb and Charlie in the background. The image felt like a cruel reminder of everything she had lost. Without thinking, she picked up her phone and dialed Nathan's number. He answered on the second ring. "What do you want, Amelia?" he asked, his voice tired. "I want to know why," she said, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this to me, to our family?" Nathan sighed. "I already told you I had my reasons." "That's not good enough," Amelia snapped. "You're accusing me of something I didn't do, and you're dragging our kids into it. Don't you care about them at all?" "Of course I care," Nathan said, his tone defensive. "That's why I'm doing this. I don't want them growing up in a broken home." Amelia laughed bitterly. "You're the one breaking it, Nathan, not me." The line went silent for a moment before Nathan spoke again, his voice softer. "Maybe you're right," he said, "but it's too late to fix it now." Amelia's heart sank. She wanted to scream, to beg him to reconsider, but she knew it would be pointless. Nathan had made up his mind, and there was no turning back. A week later, Malcolm received a call from the lab. The technician's voice was calm but hesitant. "Mr. Harper, we've completed our internal review of the DNA test in question," and Malcolm prompted, his heart pounding. There was indeed an error. The technician admitted the test results were tampered with before they were sent to the client. "We're still investigating how this happened, but we believe it may have been an internal breach." Malcolm's blood ran cold. "So the results Nathan received were falsified?" "Yes, sir. We'll be issuing a formal statement to Mr. Harper and offering to redo the test free of charge." Malcolm thanked that technician and hung up, his mind racing. Someone had deliberately altered the test results, and it was clear that Nathan had been involved. But what could he do with this information? How could he prove to Nathan and to the courts that the original results have been faked? Malcolm wasted no time. Armed with the knowledge of the falsified DNA results, he immediately contacted his lawyer Peter, a sharp and non-nonsense man who had handled high-stakes cases before. "This changes everything," Peter said after Malcolm explained. "If we can prove Nathan knowingly used falsified evidence, it'll destroy his credibility in court." "Can we sue one of the lab's records?" Malcolm asked. "We can try," Peter said, "but it'll take time. In the meantime, you need to gather anything else that links him to the tampering." Malcolm nodded grimly. "I'll handle it." His next step was to confront Nathan directly. He showed up unannounced at Nathan's new apartment, knocking hard on the door. When Nathan opened it, his expression shifted from surprise to irritation. "What are you doing here?" Nathan demanded. "You know exactly why I'm Here Malcolm said, his voice cold. I spoke to the lab. They know the DNA results were tampered with. Nathan's face ped for a brief moment before he recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Malcolm snapped, stepping closer. You've been trying to destroy Amelia with false accusations. Do you have any idea what you've done to her, to this family? Nathan's jaw tightened. I did what I thought was right, Malcolm scoffed.